Imagine being a full adult. With your buddy at hand, you plan to rob the neighborhood, with your name being Harry Lime and your buddy Marv Merchants. Your plan is to investigate your victim's household, wait until the right chance, and to strike. You've outsmarted as well as outrun the cops multiple times. Should be a piece of cake. Nothing but an inconvenience. You and your buddy make your way down into the basement. You've taken into account that the family that lives inside that house was supposed to be long gone, making their way into their own flights from your own inspection from yesterday. The light flickers on from the basement. This confuses you. Not wanting to take any chances, you flee from the house. The very next day, you come back to the residence. You send your buddy to investigate, and then, soon enough, you see him come back, shaken. He told you about how there sounded like there was a shootout inside the house. The possibility of a murder perks you up. Being a witness to a murder sheds more light to the actual murder case rather than your own petty crime, and so both of you wait. And you wait. And you wait. In the morning, you see a child walking out of the house. You realize that must have been the only child in the house. The only person in the house. You realize you've been fooled, tricked, bamboozled. The next day, that was when the chaos began. These series of unfortunate events were laid out gruesome, rapid, and violent. Vital mistakes and weaknesses were exploited. The planning and the foresight needed in creating traps one must account for is on another level of warfare. That made me think, how did Kevin, the child, best two grown adults? For the child, this was no intrusion for his family's belongings. This was war. Brute strength is not enough when it comes to warfare. The cultivation of the resources the general has in his disposal is also an important factor. What did the wet bandits do wrong? What did Kevin do right? Only then we can analyze how the tides were turned. In order to do this, we must consult a literary classic, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. The Art of War is a book originating from 5th century BC China, written by Sun Tzu. This is considered a timeless book, telling of 13 chapters, helping in the studies of psychology, business, and warfare. Inspiration was taken from all across history using this text, from the Vietnam War to extensive stratagems in various video games. The Art of War is applied almost anywhere with a competitive atmosphere. There are 13 chapters. In order to simplify for easier digestion of information, we can only include the oversimplification of it all, the main point. The fundamentals of the Art of War are as such. He will win who knows when to fight and when to not fight. Everything else revolves around that one principle. To gain information and foresight, and to deceive the enemy. To know the land you reside and the country you must attack. To know your stratagem. To know the scope of both you and the enemy. The very next day, Marv tried to ease their way in by attempting to fool Kevin by pretending to be Santa Claus and his elf. Although this can be attributed with Sun Tzu's 2 cents about peace proposals unaccompanied by a sworn covenant indicate a plot, there is a larger, broader mistake here. They did not have the foreknowledge to know the vigilant eyes that Kevin had. They went inside, expecting nothing more than a cowering child, and were punished by Kevin. Kevin employed one of Sun Tzu's weapons, deception. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Intentional or unintentional, it worked. Sun Tzu said, "There are not more than 5 musical notes, but there are infinite melodies." The same applies with both direct and indirect methods of winning a battle. After the constant punishments, both bandits kept going. This was their second mistake. They did not step outside and contemplate and analyze the situation at hand. The bandits' weak points are their arrogance and foolishness, bringing upon one of Sun Tzu's dangerous faults, recklessness, which leads to destruction. Kevin was quite clever, puppeteering his enemies, sacrificing something for the enemy to snatch, keeping the enemy on the move. There are 6 calamities one must face in the stroke of battle. Ruin is the act of when higher officers are frustrated and then attacks from resentment of the enemy. Rout is the inability to estimate the enemy, unintentionally allowing an inferior force and a strong force to collide. Both of the wet bandits underestimated the enemy, and dividing oneself in order to clear out the situation allowed Kevin to attack one-on-one. Strength and detail is important. The land they are settling on for the fight to occur is counted as a narrow pass. The definition of a narrow pass is when a part of the land is useful to the one who occupies it first. Kevin relied on one of Sun Tzu's famous principles. The art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him. Not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. Kevin was ready for their robbery. Kevin did not rely on the odds that the wet bandits wouldn't have come. Kevin made his position almost unattainable. One statement in the art of war fully encapsulates Kevin. At first, then, exhibit the coyness of a maiden, until the enemy gives you an opening. Afterwards, emulate the rapidity of a running hare, and it will be too late for the enemy to oppose you. Deception was Kevin's greatest ally, followed by his foreknowledge and his calculations and strategy. Although Kevin's plans worked, and his mind sharp, there are some shortcomings the child had in his plan. At the very end, Kevin was in a tough spot. Kevin, with no other choice, chooses one of Sun Tzu's calamities. Seeing that he was outnumbered, he fled. He is then cornered and left on desperate ground. Marley, on the intersecting highways, saves Kevin. The odds of the enemy attacking is the same as the odds of an unsuspecting ally to retaliate. There was no plan in place and no absolute cultivating of the resources around him. One of Sun Tzu's policies were broken. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. This was no studied territory.